For a while now, it's been more of a general agreement that Zoro and Sanji don't have any strength correlations at all. Like, how are you even talking about Zoro and Sanji in the same sentence? Or that Sanji can never seriously be in strength conversations with Zoro now and going forward. While that may be a realistic perspective, I believe that's about to change. Good morning class, this isn't an agenda video, it's educational. Oda came into Elbaf with a purpose, and for this video, leave all your agenda and biases aside and let's recognize his purpose together and see how Oda is calculating what he's doing with Sanji, starting with Elbaf. The arc of Elbaf began with establishing the core dynamic of the monster trio. He has them farm and make a homage to their pre-time skip Alabasta moment and do the same exact combined attack. After that, he pairs them up in the underworld to confront Loki, and then in the last chapter, he has them all geared up to fight the danger on Elbaf. Oda is trying to reinforce the monster trio dynamic and have Sanji stand in the same light as Luffy and Zoro in this arc just by how he's grouping them up together. Fast forwarding a bit, Oda makes specific hype with Gabon that correlates to the monster trio's dynamic. Oda said that Gabon, Rayleigh, and Roger all stood shoulder to shoulder together, essentially grouping them as the three main core powerhouses that can stand next to each other. This statement sounds like it correlates to the monster trio's dynamic and how he was establishing their dynamic more in this arc in order to reinforce them more at this stage. Even though we already know the monster trio is a legitimate dynamic in the series, this is step 1 of Oda sending a message about how he wants to reinforce this trio and mainly remind us of Sanji's relevancy beside them. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, we also get to see flashbacks of Gabon and Rayleigh, how their relationship kinda seems like the monster trios. Then Oda does something ridiculous and introduces Gabon. In his introduction, Oda makes it clear off rip that his character is directly a parallel to Sanji. The theme of Gabon's character has a lot to do with love, and he calls himself the Ministry of Love, and also simply off Luffy just saying that this guy is what Sanji will be like in the future. So that's step 2 right there. Oda establishing early on that Sanji and Gabon should be parallels and Sanji should mimic what he represents in Roger's crew, but better. Step 3. Then Oda drops a terminology that was never actually used in One Piece or name dropped in the entire series, and funny enough, Sanji fans used to get clowned for assuming that this was an actual role on the crew or an actual title, and this role is the left hand of the Pirate King, or just the left hand. Since we know Sanji parallels Gabon and has another terminology similar in being called the Wings of the Pirate King, it should mean that Sanji is the left hand of Luffy because we know Zoro is the right hand. Step 4. Gabon and Rayleigh's strength. Oda has made it very clear this arc that Gabon in some way, shape, or form is relative to Rayleigh, and at the very least they're at the same level. If we look at it from an ability standpoint, they both seem to be extremely good hockey users, with Gabon showcasing the best observation hockey on Elbaf because he was the only one who was able to sense the God Knights who conceal their presence, while Luffy and the others had no idea that these guys were on the island. And that's mainly because they were able to conceal their presence and Gabon was able to still sense them. And on top of that, he's also able to see into the future, while also seemingly having advanced Conqueror's hockey with how his lightning reflects that associated with the Conqueror using that ability. Rayleigh is the exact same, but instead of showcasing insane observation, we know he has really good Ardaman hockey, being able to use stage 2 Rio, or being able to use stage 2 advanced Ardaman hockey, the one that penetrates and destroys things from within. We've seen him do that by exploding the collars back in Sabori, or back in the slave auction. We also assume he has advanced Conqueror's hockey, which is very likely and is 100% the case. So from an ability standpoint, it makes sense if they could be around the same level because of the stages of hockey they both have. And you know what's probably not a coincidence? Rayleigh was shown to have really good Ardaman hockey and Gabon was shown to have really good observation hockey. Seems like they specialize in that category of hockey. Now it's funny because Zoro, who parallels Rayleigh, specializes in Ardaman hockey as well, and Sanji, who parallels Gabon, specializes in observation hockey as well. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. But their abilities is not the only reason I'm saying that, because that's not a proper way to look at things. I'm equating that with their portrayal to say that I believe they're on the same level. Gabon was name dropped with Rayleigh a lot to hype him up. Did you know there were 2 monstrous fighters on the Pirate King's crew besides Roger? Wait, it wasn't just Rayleigh? He rivaled Silver's Rayleigh. I can't pull up the Viz translation right now while I'm recording this, which is quote unquote the more accurate translation, but I believe this said after Silver's Rayleigh, the first mate. This man is the left hand, but it really doesn't matter. I don't really care if it said that or not, because the point is the name drop alongside Rayleigh, the legendary figure who stood shoulder to shoulder with Roger and Rayleigh. Wow, he's equal to Rayleigh, the left hand of the Pirate King. Once again, for the Zoro fans who are fuming right now asking for the the vid's translation to be said, I'll put it up on the screen right now, but I believe it said the counterpart to Rayleigh. And without getting into semantics, it more or less means the same thing. So if I count how many times Rayleigh was brung up with Gabon's introduction, it's 4 times. Now this isn't me to say they're equal or Gabon can be stronger than Rayleigh, it's simply to tell you why I think they're at least on the same level. Gabon's introduction was tying him with the Rayleigh to speak on his strength, which makes me believe he should be skilled near him. Or else why is Oda bringing up Rayleigh's name repeatedly? He also calls him a legendary figure alongside those guys. So not only this, but Oda made Gabon and Rayleigh direct parallels to Zoro and Sanji and even share their competitive rivalry, with Gabon wanting to one-up Rayleigh in the recent chapter by insinuating he was the second strongest in the crew. What really confirms this parallel is that Oda called Gabon and Rayleigh the wings of the Pirate King in the recent chapter, and we obviously know that's directly what Zoro and Sanji are referred to. When you tie in their capabilities on paper regarding hockey and how they fight, how Gabon is referenced amongst Rayleigh, and you factor in their dynamic, it makes it seem like there's a realistic rivalry of two characters that are seemingly close in power. Whether you believe Rayleigh is stronger is not important, as the fact that their dynamic actually doesn't seem goofy because Gabon is actually capable of fighting Rayleigh. So when Gabon says he's number 2, it doesn't seem ridiculous for him to believe that since he's probably close to Rayleigh, even though as a viewer's perspective, we don't believe that. And that's where a lot of people let agenda consume them. People think Gabon's goofy, or a lot of people think Gabon shouldn't talk the way he does because as a reader, you 100% believe Rayleigh is stronger. But if you're in a rivalry with someone and you guys actually compete and you guys are actually close in strength, why would you not believe you're stronger than the other person? Would you want to blow him and put him on a pedestal? I don't believe that's how a person's mentality should be, especially if you're rivals. Now I get to my point. If Zoro and Sanji are supposed to mimic these two characters' standings in their crew and their dynamic and their rivalry, I think that means Zoro and Sanji should also mimic their relativity in strength as well when it's all said and done. There are going to be points in the series, like even right now, where people will say it doesn't look like that's the case, and that's fine, but I believe that could make sense going forward from this point. This isn't to say Sanji is equal to Zoro or that he's going to be stronger than Zoro, but I think what this means is that Sanji and Zoro's gap will probably close shorter and shorter in the future than we might have thought of prior. Because I ask you this, do you think Oda said all these things about Gabon and made it clear he represents Sanji for no reason? Before hyping up Gabon, he wanted the readers to firmly understand that this guy represents Sanji and Luffy's crew. He made Gabon and Rayleigh's dynamic and relationship like Zoro and Sanji to some degree, while pretty much almost identical because they're both the wings of the Pirate King and they both have some type of rivalry with being stronger than each other. But the thing about this is that Oda wants us to believe Sanji is a parallel to Gabon, while also making Gabon seem like a guy who should be at the very least on the same level as Rayleigh, who's Zoro's parallel. So what is Oda trying to tell you right there? It's the question I want to ask you guys. He made two characters who we should believe to be on the same level, and he's basically telling us this is Zoro and Sanji in the future and what they're going to look like on their Pirate King crew. And those guys are seemingly close in strength. And from how I broke this down, it doesn't seem like a coincidence has happened. Like, I feel like this is calculated. So what does that tell you?